Welcome to the Craft Parenting Podcast, a podcast about two Cincinnati craft beer lovers with a parenting problem. But today you get one half of that parenting problem, or that parenting team, and we get half of another parenting team.
Yeah, I still am a craft beer lover that has a parenting problem, so
Yeah.
it all works.
It fits lots of people. Today I'm joined by the Gnarly Gnome. It is not his first time on the podcast, but I guess it's your first time officially being a guest on the podcast and not just hey, we invited people that had been on the podcast before, but we also invited you, and you're like, I've never been on here.
I was still a guest, though. I was a guest
were.
on that podcast.
Yeah.
So it counts. Second time.
Mm-hmm. So we are at the lovely Voodoo Brewing downtown. I haven't been downtown on a weekday in forever.
I come down here like fairly often because I have some clients down this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I always try, most Tuesdays I'm over here because Molly is over at Arnold's making up some cocktails. Molly Wellman, for anybody that doesn't know, Cincinnati's premier mixologist. So I usually swing over there to have a couple cocktails before I head out of the city. And sometimes I'll stop in here. Mm-hmm. Sometimes. It's a little expensive. Their beers are kind of steep.
I mean, they've got West Side Amber Ale.
That's true.
And
West Side, Best Side. That is,
yeah.
I hear that it is the best side. I think North Side is the best side.
The sign does say Best Side Amber Ale.
That is, yeah. Yep.
But there's a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man out front.
Mm-hmm. He gets really sad when it rains. He kind of flops over.
Yeah.
And just kind of flops around on the ground. It's a neat tap room.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Tap room, not a brewery. That has to be understood. I think people get confused. They don't make beer here. But the beer's pretty good.
Yeah, when they don't, while they're not Cincinnati owned, they do have a lot of Cincinnati beers on draft. So they're not just like,
this is
it's only us.
Cincinnati owned.
Okay.
It's a franchise model. So someone owns this location, a local person. His name's Chris. He owns this spot. And there's somebody completely different that owns the spot up in Westchester.
Mm-hmm.
They're locally owned. Just the beer comes from a different brewery.
Okay.
It's a very different model than other places around here are. Like Highwire is owned by Highwire. It's owned from people from out of state. Which again, shout out to Highwire. Everybody go buy some Highwire beer this week because
if you can
Asheville
get
is
any Asheville
messed
beer at the moment,
messed
buy
up.
it.
There's some videos that are just absolutely depressing to watch.
Yeah. Well, the slide at New Belgium is probably a water slide now.
Probably a mudslide at this point. I think the water's down now. But
the most recent report that I saw was, and I'm a millennial, so I didn't click on it. I just read the headline.
That's the best way to do it. Yeah.
It really is.
Then you don't get that paywall.
Yeah, that's the frustrating. You click on it and it's like 30,000 ads, or it's, hey, you've read 2 paragraphs, now pay $10.
Yeah.
But they said all the breweries are closed indefinitely. Please, thoughts and prayers. Well, we got to figure out where we're at.
Not that I don't worry about New Belgium. I don't know how Sierra Nevada did. I don't know if they were because they're a little bit outside of town. I don't know if things were the same over there, but like New Belgium will be fine. They've got tons of money behind them. They'll be okay. Yeah. There's another massive brewery on the other side of the country that's still up and running and cranking out beer. They'll be fine. I assume that the people that work there are probably still going to keep getting paychecks, even though the brewery is not open. Like it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. It's the other places that I really am concerned about. Highwire does have other tap rooms around the country, but all of their production comes out of Asheville. And I saw pictures of that facility, and it was definitely underwater. There was little places like the Wedge and Zillicoa, and like all of these places that we all love. That I don't know how all of them make it out of it, because they that even just that downtime in production can just destroy especially with how things have been going lately. It's gonna be rough.
Yeah, if you're lucky, you still have the beer that was in the tanks. But even then, you don't know what temperature it's been at. You don't know when you can get to it. And you don't have anywhere to put it.
And I don't know how sanitary some of those tanks are trying to. I assume you're probably okay. They're probably sealed enough that you're okay. But can you legally then serve that after it's been partially underwater?
Yeah. And is there anyone to serve it to, or is there a street to let people come in?
Well, I saw a post by Ginger's Revenge, which is a place down there that makes ginger ale, or ginger beer, sorry. and they said that the brewery will be fine, and there's a lot of cleanup to do. But right now, they still can't get a hold of everybody.
Yeah.
They can't even get in contact with all the people that work there. They're assuming everybody's okay. They're hoping everybody's okay, but they don't know. They have no clue. And that idea is just, go buy some North Carolina beer.
Yeah, my aunt and uncle lived. Well, I have my aunt and uncle, and my aunt and uncle lived down there, and one of them was in town, and the other one was in Asheville, or just outside of Asheville, and it took them like 2 or 3 days to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
And then there was mudslide across our driveway, so we can't really get out.
Mm-hmm.
But some neighbors helped with some trees.
Yeah, that's scary stuff.
Good luck.
We were upset because our cell phones didn't work for one day. I mean, come on.
Yeah. We didn't have that problem this time. We had it with the AT&T outage.
Yeah, we definitely had it this time, and I thought it was great. It was very, very freeing and quiet for a day.
It's nice. It's like, oh, hey, it's back to the 90s. Where you had to memorize your phone number so you could call your mom when you got to your friend's house, and then they couldn't get a hold of you otherwise, and yelling out the back porch.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at Voodoo Brewing. Let's see here. I am drinking a Hazy Vibes, which is a 7% beer. I'm assuming it's like a New England because it tastes kind of New Englandy.
I'm drinking the Hazy Afternoon.
Oh, nice. I thought
the
about
Hazy
that
Pale Ale. Not typically the style that I would go to, but it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm enjoying this. So we are going to talk to the Gnarly Gnome today about all things Gnome and Cincy and upcoming events that are exciting in the Cincinnati community.
There are lots of them.
The website said 90 plus.
90 plus breweries and tap rooms.
Oh, 90 plus breweries and tap rooms. That's what it was.
Yes.
That was on my Post-it note that I didn't bring with me.
You mean name them all? Here we go.
Yes.
No, I can't name them all. And I'd have to go back and double check that number now that there's been a couple places that have closed. But I imagine it's still probably right about that. It's probably like a 91 right now with breweries and tap rooms.
We'll go ish.
Yeah, ish.
Ish gives you some wiggle room. So you have been in the Cincinnati craft.
93.
Okay, so you're still plus.
Yeah.
So you've been in the Cincinnati craft beer community for a very long time. What made you start to want to blog?
Well, that's an interesting question. So, beer is the easy answer. I love beer. I love craft beer. I love Cincinnati craft beer. From pretty much the very beginning of me being a craft beer drinker, there was local beer, and so I've just always loved local craft beer. As far as why I started a blog, that's a little bit more complicated. I'm a note taker. I'm like a very crazy level note taker. I've always kind of kept these weird little notes about things so that I don't forget things, and it helps me learn. That's just how I learn things. And I started at one point kind of just taking notes about not only just the beers that I were drinking, but the places and the people and just these things that were going on, and kind of the web that kind of ties them all together, and that kind of thing is very fascinating to me. And you couldn't find the information on any other blogs that were out there, and there were lots of beer blogs here in town. Mm-hmm. So eventually I just, on some kind of whim, put it up on the internet. and people started reading it, so then I'm like, oh, I guess I have a blog. But it wasn't like some kind of, today I'm going to start a blog. It wasn't like that kind of well thought out. It was, unfortunately, because I think I could have structured things a lot better if I had planned from the beginning of what it was going to look like.
Well, then you probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I probably would have. I like structure. I like that. I like that a lot more than the chaos that that has determined the direction of the Gnome since then. But yeah, it was just wanting to get all of this information written down somewhere and in one spot where, number one, I could get to it, and then eventually that other people could get to it too.
It's very
That's the
useful.
easiest way to put it.
Yeah. Well, because sometimes you go, especially when we were going down in Indianapolis or when we were in Nashville, we were trying to figure out stuff about these breweries. Yeah. And it's like, well, maybe they have a sentence on their website. Yeah. And then it's okay. I've got to scroll through and I've got to go through Google and find some pictures and.
Well, and I struggled too, especially in those early kind of times of Cincinnati beer. You would get on and somebody would have an article that they wrote about a brewery, and the hours would be on there. And you're like, oh, that's great. Then you'd show up and the hours were wrong. And I'm like, well, why would you not change that on your website? Why would you, as a blogger, not correct that? I get it, but, that frustrated me. So I'm like, okay, I need a place that I know that the hours are right. I need a place that I know the information about the brewery is correct. I don't want somebody to tell me they are brewing on a 10-barrel system if last year they upgraded to a 15-barrel or, vice versa, whatever, the case may be. If they have food, I want to know that. I don't want to go there and have somebody like that wrote an article when they first opened telling me they don't have food to not have somehow updated that information on there for me to get to. So I started just doing that. Fixing everything that everybody else is getting wrong. And I'm not perfect, don't get me wrong. If you ever see something that's incorrect on the website, please let me know because it drives me crazy.
Yeah, there's definitely gaps in information. Part of it's just, do you have the team to...
That's the difficulty now. Like it was easier early on when there was just a handful of breweries. You could get to every beer tapping. You could talk to breweries every single week. Be like, hey, how are you guys? What's going on? What's new? What's coming up? And you could make that one-on-one contact constantly, whereas now there's some places where it's going to be 6 months before I get back there, and that's generous with some of them,
Yeah.
Sons of Toil, I'm lucky if I get out there once a year. Like it's hard to keep that updated.
Yeah, I want to say we've been out there twice, maybe.
Yeah, it has to be like a very conscious effort to get to some of these places that are on the opposite side of town for you, especially when you've got a great brewery that's close by, it's easy just to go there. So that's the tough part right now is keeping things up to date.
When there's 90 plus locations that are active and doing things, it does that. Even if you do one a week, that's still 2 years.
Yeah.
If you do 2 a week,
that's why we have to go to 9 places every day. It's because I'm working.
It's a tax write-off. It's fine.
It's it is the difficulty, though, of, you guys talk about the difficulties of parenting in the craft beer sphere, and that sometimes things are tougher because you've got kids. It's like that, too. There's family stuff going on. There's all kinds of events and things that you have to do as a parent, and sometimes it's hard to go out there and be a gnome.
Yeah. It seems like every time we have plans that we're like, everybody's super excited about, it's been on the schedule for weeks. The night before, somebody pops a fever. Yeah,
you guys all got sick before Oktoberfest season. Like that is a cardinal sin. Like I tell my kids every year as we get to like July, I'm like, listen up, guys, it's coming. Oktoberfest is almost here. Everybody put on your bubble suits. Don't breathe on anybody. Don't touch anybody. Don't even look at anybody because nobody can get sick.
Hey, the important thing...
Unacceptable.
The important thing is that it was all before the Donauschwaben Oktoberfest.
Yes. Yeah,
that's the only one that matters.
They all matter.
They all matter, but for us, it's 3 days of basically living there.
Yeah.
So if one of us had to stay home with the kids, it would totally throw everything away.
It would wreck the entire season.
Yeah. It's the one thing we look forward to every year. We got 35 plus beers on draft this year.
Yeah, it's and I feel that way about, for me, the entire Oktoberfest season. Like it is so important to me, and if I miss one thing, it's like it's messes everything up.
Yeah, fortunately the event. So I missed Germania's Oktoberfest, which I was not super bummed about because that one's always hot.
It wasn't as it was still warm this year, but it wasn't as bad as it's been in previous years.
Yeah, I more have the previous years in my head
it's
of
hot
like
sometimes.
being drenched and then trying to figure out where the closest beer is so I can try to cool down after
we're
done
done man,
dancing.
That beer tastes so good when you're sweaty.
It does. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be like the most bitter IPA ever, and you're like, this is the best thing I've ever drank in my life.
I have never had an IPA at an Oktoberfest.
Joe did.
I will not stand for that.
Because he ordered an Oktoberfest, and they handed him the IPA instead, and he didn't realize it until we were far enough away.
You always got to pay attention to those things.
And then he took a drink of it.
Also,
and he's like, that ruined the night.
How do you not take a swig as soon as that cup hits your hand? Like, as soon as they hand it to you, I don't care if I'm getting beers for 3 people. I'm drinking one little sip out of each one of them. I'm like, I can't not do it.
It is the beer tax. That is a thing. This is a very open-ended question. Okay. Why craft beer?
Why craft beer?
Why not wine? Why not coffee?
Well, I do that too. Yeah, I drink wine and I drink coffee, and I think for me, early on, I had a lot more knowledge about beer, so it was easier for me to write about it. Now, over time, the website has started to kind of branch out a little bit. There's still not a lot of wine information on there because that is still the one thing that I'm probably the weakest on as far as my knowledge. And there's not a lot of coffee either because coffee is it's not as I'll probably get some crap for this, but like it's not as
maybe I can put this into words. There's like 5 roasters that the people in Cincinnati
Yeah.
use. A few of them are like local, but then it's like, well, I know 3 different places that use the same roaster.
Right.
So it's similar but different experiences.
I don't know what a good way to describe that is. It's not. I want to say it's not as crafty because it is. It's almost like there's just a ton of tap rooms in the coffee world and not many breweries. That's almost what it's like for me.
That makes sense.
But I do enjoy coffee, and it'll work its way onto the website at some point. It'll all get there eventually. That's the idea long term for the website, is that anytime you want to drink anything, you can go to the website and find some kind of information about doing that here in Cincinnati and what that means in Cincinnati's kind of bigger culture. Because drinking is part of our culture in all fronts.
We're like 2 blocks away from Vine Street.
Yeah.
Every other door was a bar.
Yeah.
It's the Cincinnati Coffee Festival is coming up at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fun.
The hard part for me with coffee too is like as I get older, the caffeine definitely affects me differently. So I can't drink coffee as late as I used to. I have to just kind of drink it in the morning, and I can't have as much as I used to because then I get heartburn and shit. So that's the other thing. I'm so limited on how much coffee I can drink in a day.
I can totally see that. I think my days of 4-shot drinks are coming
like
to an end soon.
I now get like the jitters and stuff, whereas that never used to happen to me before from caffeine. Like it just it's rough. But I do enjoy it all.
Let's hear. Since you've branched out as a creator.
I'm a creator.
Yeah. What are your other media projects, and what are your goals with them?
Oh, I mean, so the idea for me is to keep bringing everything that I do into that same idea of drinking in Cincinnati. Everything I do. That's. I would love every project that I take on to have something to do with drinking in the city, and that's, I guess, the biggest long-term goal is just to keep trying to make that happen. Within that, I do still take on client work, bars and restaurants, ideally. I love shooting for restaurants and do food and stuff like that, but ideally, it's drink clients, people that somehow contribute to the drinking scene of Cincinnati. But I mean, I'll that's probably the best way to put it. That's the end goal, I guess. I will take on other stuff, but that's not the direction that I want to be. I shot real estate for years. It was 16 years that I shot real estate, and at the same time I was doing all this gnome stuff, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like during the day, I'm thinking about this, and then as soon as it hits 5 o'clock, my brain does this weird shift thing, and I go and I start thinking about this, and this is what I really enjoy, and this is more fun, and then I find myself during the day starting to think about it and trying to find ways to improve this and do this, and I'm thinking about the drinking side of everything, and why am I not doing that all the time? It just didn't make logical sense to me, so that's where that kind of shifted, and where the are you getting dribbled on from the roof?
Oh, from the AC unit.
Oh, yeah, there is sweat all over it. I see that now.
I was like, this isn't bird poop, right?
No, it's definitely condensation.
Yeah.
So that's that. But I mean, as far as specific projects that I'm working on, I can probably talk about the one that I'm getting ready to start. I don't think we have a technical contract signed right now, but I'm doing this big project with the Brewing Heritage Trail. Mm-hmm. They are getting ready to try to get into the Bruckman complex and try to get that set up to do tours up there. And I'm going to try to document that process of getting it ready for tours. And it's going to be a big multi-part video project. It's going to be a ton of fun. Just cool stuff.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Because it would be probably similar but very different to the Missing Link project.
Yeah. Except Missing Link, they didn't know if anything was actually going to work.
Yeah.
I know that this will work. It's a lot less stress.
Sometimes that's half the fun.
Sometimes.
Except when it doesn't work out, then you're like, oh. What lessons have you been taking away from kind of your transition and all your time as a blogger and podcaster?
What lessons? So I'm a firm believer that whatever you are doing, we're going to get real deep here. Whatever you're doing, you have to be passionate about it. I don't believe in, and I know that there's a lot of people that say you go to work, and the whole reason you go to work is so you can earn money, and you do this whole thing. I know that's important to a lot of people, and I think it's a load of horseshit. I think that you go to work because you want to do something, and what that work is should be as important to you as everything else in your life, or else why are you doing it? It just doesn't make sense to me. I think everything you do in life has to have a very specific purpose to you as a human being. And I want to find more and more ways constantly to just keep improving that relationship that I have with my actions to the why behind it all, if that makes sense. And I think that took me a long time to kind of figure out and to understand that was okay, and to understand that you can kind of take risks based off of that because you know that you're doing it for the right reason. And even if, a project doesn't work, or, something comes out and you're like, oh, shoot, I just spent how much time doing this and I didn't make anything off of it. Like that didn't work out the way it was supposed to. I wasted 40 hours doing this thing and didn't make anything. That's not why you were doing it in the first place. So it doesn't, you don't get that sting of it, and you don't get that feeling. It's like, oh, this was, the reason I was doing this was this, and here's what I was trying to get out of it, and here's what I did get out of it. And then you keep kind of moving to the next thing. If that answers the question.
I think so.
The lesson for me is just, do what you do because you need to be doing it, not because you think you're supposed to be doing it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can get stuck in a rut potentially because it's, well, I'm miserable at work.
Yeah.
And then I take some of that misery home, even though I know I'm not supposed to. And I don't know what it is that I'm living for. Right.
Well, and it starts to ruin your time at home, and it ruins this and it ruins that. Even like little things, like, there'll be times that, like, you're mowing the grass. Not everybody wants to mow the grass in the summertime. It's hot outside, and you just don't want to do it.
But that beer at the end tastes really good.
Maybe. If you have like this clear thing laid out in your head of why you do everything that you do, and if you spend enough time like really kind of figuring that why for yourself out, all of a sudden mowing the grass has its little place that it fits into there. And you're like, oh, no, I don't want to mow the grass right now, but I know that the reason I'm mowing the grass is because I want to have, this yard cut because I want to go outside this weekend and I want to play soccer with the kids. And if there's, the grass is 3 feet tall, that's not going to work. And that's really what I want to do because I want to be a good dad, or I want to, get better at soccer, whatever your reason is. Everything starts to have these like deeper, like meanings to you, and again, it took me a very long time to kind of figure that out, and then to really understand how to put it into practice in my life. That's the lesson that I guess.
It's a good lesson.
And beer kind of taught me that.
Yeah. Well, you drink enough beer and you can learn a lot of things.
It's true.
Or you're just an expert in a lot of things right off the bat.
But it's also kind of like when you take a kind of a bird's eye look at the craft brewing industry and why it has worked the way it has. That's kind of part of it too. It's like you get a lot of people that are helping each other, not for like, it doesn't help their business necessarily to help the new guy that's on the other side of town. They help them because they love craft beer and they love this thing and they want this thing to be better. And it's like a deeper understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, and then helping somebody else all of a sudden just makes sense. It's like of course you're going to do that. Like you don't even have to think about it, and it's kind of that same idea, I guess.
I like it.
It's helped me a lot with a lot of things in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of suck, but if you can find the reason behind it, it'll get you there. If
you can find the reason before you even get to the suck, that's where it starts to get really nice, is that you don't even have to think about it. Now, it can have bad sides too, because there'll be times where somebody wants you to do something like, nope, not doing that. Doesn't fit into the bigger picture of who I am and what I'm doing. And it's like, can't you just like suck it up and do it? And nope, Not doing it.
Well, here is my, as I lovingly call it, my FU quote for if you pay me like 5 times my going rate, yes, I will do this thing for you. But otherwise, no, thank you.
Yeah. See, I don't even know that I have that. Like, people always joke that everybody has a price.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy that. I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think there are things that people have a price for because of some other reason in their head.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's definitely things in people's life that they probably don't have a price for. It's like, hey, what's your price to, have your kids just move out of the house and you never get to see them again? There's no price for that.
Nope.
Because you have a grasp on why you have a family and who they are and how they, are part of you, and like it's this bigger picture thing that everybody hopefully has a very strong grasp on. But when you start a business, people don't necessarily have that same kind of underlying why behind it. Or if they do, sometimes it's not as personal as your kids.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't pay me to spend more time away from the kids than I want to.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't work that
If
way.
you're going to spend time away from your kids, there has to be a really good reason why you're doing it. And
Yeah.
so you have to understand that.
Yeah, no, not going to happen. What advice would you give to someone who wants to start a blog or a podcast?
Start it. It is that simple. You've probably seen this with people in podcasts when they see you out podcasting somewhere. They start talking like, "Oh, I've always wanted to start a podcast." So, hey, go start a podcast. Like you
just need your phone.
It is easier now than it ever has been to start anything. To start podcast, to start a blog, to start a YouTube channel, if you want to create something, go create it. Like there's nothing stopping you except something in your head that you haven't gotten over.
Yeah, we have fancy equipment because we chose to have fancy equipment.
Yeah, you don't need it.
I know many podcasts that it's just, okay, I have my phone, you have your phone. I have my headset that plugs into my phone. You have yours. This is how we're going to do this.
Yep.
And maybe we're on opposite sides of the country. Maybe we're right next to each other, but phone does everything for us.
Yep. There's no reason you can't. And again, you can grow with things and get better at stuff and make it look better, look fancier, sound better, whatever. But if you just want to create something, if that's your what that you want to do, if you I want to do this, okay, well then do it. Now I want to start a podcast, but it needs to make money and it needs to sound a certain way and it needs to get a certain number of listens and all this stuff. Now you're into a whole different realm because that's something else.
Yeah.
But if all you want to do is make it, just make it.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I've made millions of dollars off
I mean,
this podcast.
I've spent a lot.
They're imaginary dollars in my kids' play kitchen.
It probably took for me. It probably took about 7 years before I was able to figure out a way to make the podcast not cost money every month. It was at least 7 years.
Yeah.
And in that 7 years, that's a lot of money that has been spent on the podcast.
Oh, for sure.
It takes a long time to make that back.
Joe handles a lot of that, but there's the website hosting, there's the podcast hosting, there's the equipment, which is usually like a one-time cost, but then, oh, hey, we want to have more people.
Never a one-time cost.
We want to have more people, so we got to get a better board. Oh, wait, we also need more mics. And it just grows and grows.
I don't know how many mixers you guys have had beer spilled on, but I have had about 4 that have been ruined by getting spilled on.
I'm just glad we survived the 100th episode with our mixer intact.
And the newer ones, which are amazing, a lot of the stuff that these companies are putting out are great. But they don't have the thread on the bottom that you can put them on a tripod. Mm-hmm. A couple of the original mixers that we used, you could just put a little tripod on them so they would sit up off the table. So if somebody spilled, the spill would just go right under them. It was perfect. They don't really design equipment for beer podcasters anymore.
They don't make IP65 podcasting equipment?
No, they don't. They might now, actually. I don't know.
That's waterproof or water resistant.
Yes.
I lost my track. So, pivoting a little bit, we've seen a lot of change in the craft beer industry over the last decade or so.
A little bit.
Breweries have come, breweries have gone. What's the most surprising thing that you've seen since you started being the Gnome?
Surprising in regards to places that have opened or closed, or just in general? I didn't think that we would see this influx of places like we're sitting in right now, of Voodoo, of places that aren't from here, that would open tap rooms here. That's shocking to me. I thought that we would see a lot more, and this is just changes in the industry, but I thought we would see a lot more of those kind of old school, it's just a brewery, there's no food. They're not really focused on, having a fancy tap room. It's just a place to make beer. And then as, obviously the industry has shifted, tap room now means everything to a business because that's where you're making your money for the most part.
Imagine opening Fabled 8 years ago.
Yeah. It looks different than I think I would have expected it to look back then. But that's just, things have just changed. I would have never predicted the whole rise of seltzers. Cocktails in tap rooms is weird. Stuff like that's just, it's weed water. I think it's strange to see some of this stuff. It's not what you expected the industry to be.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just not what you expected.
Yeah, I haven't been paying attention to how seltzers have been doing this year because I haven't been drinking as many this summer.
Not great at all.
Yeah. I think I've had I've maybe finished a case of seltzer this year.
Well, and it's really kind of just settled into High Noon is just dominating everything. And
I see it everywhere.
Yeah.
I haven't had one. At least I don't think I have, but I've seen them everywhere.
They're fine. It's even that's not really a seltzer though, is in the traditional sense of what we thought seltzers were. It's a an RTD kind of canned cocktail almost, like it's booze and water and flavor. It's that again, not what I would have predicted for the industry, but here we are. It's the new light beer.
Yeah, we went from our brewery has like 4 different beers on draft back in the late 1800s to now. If you don't have at least 6, I don't even know if I'm going to come inside.
And you have to have everything. You can't. I mean, I say that kind of sarcastically a little bit because I think there is room for places that specialize, but they aren't. Everybody wants to provide something for everybody instead of trying to, as Brett Coleman Baker always puts it, get rich in your niche.
Yeah.
Nobody specializes anymore.
Yeah, because I think Fibonacci, they do small batch, and it's as much local stuff as they can get.
Yeah.
Urban Artifact has stuck very hard to Midwest fruit tarts.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody else kind of does a little bit of everything.
We had Rebel Metal when they opened. We're like, oh, we're gonna go lager. That's it. We're gonna specialize in lager, which was great. And then obviously that didn't last, so that was sad.
Yeah,
but
I mean, half of that might have also been location, but who knows?
Timing too. I mean, it was right when COVID was starting was when they opened. It was bad time.
You don't know it's a bad time until afterwards.
Well, and you can't stop a machine like that once it's rolling. It's like, oh man, we got to open. So I kind of on that same note, I think I would have expected to see more specialization, especially in a city like Cincinnati, where yes, things are spread out, but they're not that spread out. And there's a lot of pockets in town where you've got 3 or 4 breweries, which to me means that there's now room for one that is very specialized in just one thing to exist in the middle of that. I don't know why you would want to open a brewery next to 4 breweries that are all kind of doing the same thing. It just doesn't seem...
Yeah,
doesn't make sense.
I don't know if I would get that either. I mean, there's a bit of the rising ships raise all tides,
sure.
But it's am I going to go next door? Am I going to go down the street? Or am I just going to go to one place and stay there?
Well, then you do have to start finding ways to compete then. And it's like, okay, so if you have 4 breweries that are identical that all open up, all they have is 6 beers on tap, and they're all just kind of those standard styles, just straight up tap room. Then one of them's going to add food. And then you're like, oh no, they've got food. We got to add food. Everybody's going to go there because they have food. We have to make our food better. And then somebody else will add in duck pin bowling. It's like, oh crap. We need something to keep people in the seats now and keep people in here because they have activities and food. And then it just
let's do jarts.
Yeah, you start just kind of trying to find things to one-up each other instead of finding a thing that makes you unique and you special and just doing that and sticking to that. And then there's, if you go that road, everybody can have something that makes them special.
Yeah.
And we're just not seeing a lot of that. There's a lot of great beer, but just not a lot of specialness.
Yeah.
There's some, but not many.
So, we talked about what happened. What do you think is next?
I mean,
we say this every year.
Yeah, it's impossible to predict. We're going to see more light beer, obviously. We're going to see more cocktails. We're going to see more of the RTD stuff. We're going to see a lot more emphasis on food, better food. People are going to stop, just making pizza and barbecue. They're going to get serious about it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of wings. I love wings. Mm-hmm. And the quality of wings in breweries over the last, let's say 2 years has just absolutely skyrocketed. It's one of those things that you won't really notice, but when you're paying attention to it, you're like, oh my God, the wings everywhere are so freaking good now. Everybody's spending more time and paying more attention to it and trying to be better at it. We're going to see lots of things like that, I think. The food programs are going to get really great. You're going to find more places that find, we'll call it some kind of other activity, be it, duck pin bowling or Mad Tree Parks and Rec, where it's in the middle of a park and you can go walk around with your beer. It becomes this activity that you do around drinking. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, of people trying to find more that other thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, going back to the food, as a parent with small kids that cannot enjoy the same aspects of the brewery that I can, I need to know that the food menu is solid and my kids are going to like it.
Oh, man. Food and breweries... food trucks have always been fun for me as an adult. I like food trucks. I like not necessarily knowing what food I'm going to get when I show up somewhere. It's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. But if I show up somewhere and it's a food that my kids don't like, we're screwed. We're not saying.
Or the food truck didn't show up because of X, Y, and Z happened.
That's a little bit easier because then I can at least, all right, the food truck's not here. We can DoorDash something and we'll be fine.
Yeah.
But if the food truck is there and either the food just sucks or it's something that my kids won't eat, we have to leave.
Yeah.
I have no other option. I can't not feed my kids. And they're not going to eat what you've got here now. And I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. We got to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I've got a half-hour timer.
Yep.
From when we get here if there is no food.
Yep.
If I can placate them with food, maybe we can squeak 2 hours out of them.
Yeah. So it's food is important. Mm-hmm. But if I know going into it, here's what it is here, eat before you come or something, then we can work around it. But the uncertainty is tough. Yeah.
The other important thing that I learned this weekend about food is if you go to a brewery that has food and they have a giant pretzel on the menu, you need to order it, not say we're going to order something else because the boy child cannot eat more pretzels, because then a server is accidentally going to attempt to deliver a giant pretzel to your table, and he's going to have a meltdown because there was no giant pretzel for him.
I understand that. I would do the same thing. That is, if there is a pretzel on the menu, it is always getting ordered if my kids are with me.
Yeah.
Always.
See, we had...
Even if they say they don't want it.
We had a bad experience recently where it wasn't...
How can you have a bad pretzel experience? Wrong shape or something?
No, they were like the freezer ones.
Okay.
And so when they came out, they were hard as a rock, but they were the medium-sized pretzels, and I was like, this was...
We're still ordering
not
them.
What I was,
We're still getting them just in case. Even if I go to order them, hey, just so you know, these pretzels are terrible. Okay. We still need them just in case.
But, shout out to Hearth because the pretzel was as big as your face, and I'm pretty sure Elliot would have eaten the whole thing.
I have not eaten at Hearth yet, and I'm excited to try it.
Yeah. So I told the family that not this Friday, but next Friday, I'm going to go there after work. You come meet me there.
You can come if you want, but that's where I'm going to be.
I'm going to go there directly after work. Come bring the kids. Come bring yourselves. But that is where I will be.
Yeah, I respect that.
Yeah. I get off work way before everybody else. The kids will probably be sleeping or something. Oh my goodness. This is a very longer question than I thought it was going to be. Oh, this is going to be a big one.
Okay.
There's a lot to be excited about in the craft beer world, but at the same time, the industry does seem to be maturing. Breweries are closing, sales nationwide are slowing as other categories like seltzer take off, which we can argue about whether or not that's still happening. Breweries are closing. As creators and advocates for the industry, what can we do to help? What do breweries need to do to make craft beer fun again?
I don't think there's a lot that we can do to help the industry. We can do our thing, obviously, and just keep talking about the things we love and why we love them and share them with people so that other people can know about it. But if people don't want to drink beer, they're not going to drink beer. We can't stop that trend. I don't know that the trend is as serious as it feels sometimes. I think that we are going to see places close, but I don't know that the places that we see close are necessarily going to be shocking. I think that there's definitely reasons why when a place closes, it closes. And for the most part, here in Cincinnati, we still, well, not for the most part, we're still net positive. We still have more places that open than close. And that's not true in every city. But there is still a lot of room in Cincinnati for places to exist as long as they understand what they need to do to exist. You know, you're not going to be Rheingeist. You're not going to be Madtree. You're not going to be Braxton. You're not going to be 50 West. Like, you have to find your own thing and do it well. And that thing is probably not selling beer on a shelf or on a tap handle.
Yeah. And then, like, just
it can be a little fun thing that adds to your business, but it's not your business.
Yeah. And, like, thinking of places that have closed recently. So BC's Bottle Lodge is the most recent place, which isn't technically a brewery, but it's very
It's a tap room.
It's tap room. It's very craft beer focused, and that was
most of their beer was their own beer at this point.
Yeah, we knew at some point these two things would become one. We just didn't think that it would be this fast.
Yeah.
So it was mildly planned for. It's just bummed that we didn't get like a week of notice to say, "Hey, let's all go and rally," like we sometimes do. Dogberry, which was. This is because of us, not because of the business.
Yeah.
We would like to get out of this. There was another one that
Great Crescent.
Yeah, Great Crescent.
Was a similar thing. It was like, hey, we have been putting plans in place to retire, and now we have some health things that all of those plans have to now get fast-tracked to right now.
Yeah.
Because we don't have time to kind of wind this thing down. We need to address these health issues. But the plan was there. They were going to retire, and they were going to change the business to something that they could still have, just not have to operate in the same way you have to operate a brewery.
Yeah, and like I don't...
They're going to open a grocery store.
Yeah.
To put it absolutely bluntly, you can hire a 16-year-old to stand behind a counter in a grocery store, and you can pay them well to stand there and do their job, and you don't have to be there. You don't have to be there and watch things and to run things. If you're making beer, you're either hiring somebody else and paying them a larger sum of money to run the brewery, or you're there.
And while I am sure that there are still lots of risks and regulations when running a grocery store, they are not the same as pouring an alcoholic beverage and like, are you 21?
Yeah.
Or should I serve you? Should I not serve you? And trying to deal with people that can handle all of that as well. Yeah.
So it's, again, the places that are closing, it's not the doom and gloom that everybody, that it seems like everybody wants it to be.
The bubble is bursting. The bubble is bursting.
People like negativity, and they like that headline, and they like to scream about stuff.
For a hot second, I was a little bit worried about it. But that was more probably about a year or so ago when it was places were closing because of the books.
Sure.
The most recent ones seem to be more of this is us coming to terms with we would like to move in a different direction in our life.
And that's not to say that there won't be places that close because their business is not doing well. That will happen too.
And maybe that's part of the reason why our life is going in a different direction.
Right.
But it's not the main reason.
Right. And when the places close that are not doing well as a business, they will be replaced by one that does do well as a business. And that's that's why there is no bubble.
Yeah, because you'll find somebody that'll do something maybe a little bit different that will.
Yeah, we're not
new people
maxed out on how many breweries can exist.
No, just the size. Yeah. Over all of them, we can't have it.
And not that I wish this or not that it's going to happen or anything like that. I was talking to somebody. And I said, like, look, picture it this way. If Rheingeist closed tomorrow, we could immediately more than double how many breweries exist in the city without selling a drop more beer because of how much beer they're making. Like, there's a lot of room for breweries depending on what they look like.
Yeah. Well, I went to Cleveland for work a long while ago, and I was in either, like, a tap room or I think it was a tap room, but it wasn't. It was a tap room, and I was like, okay, what local beers can I find at Kroger?
Yeah.
Or like the grocery store, because I want to get some local beers that, like, I can only visit 2 tap rooms while I'm here. What should I get? Like Urban Artifact, Rheingeist.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
We had the same experience when we were up in Sandusky. It was like, what kind of craft beer do you have? You got Rheingeist, Urban, there was Garage Beer, and there was Great Lakes. Oh, cool. Take the Great Lakes, I guess.
Potentially the freshest you'll get it, or maybe not.
Probably not at all.
I mean, the Kelsey brothers taking over Garage Beer has been interesting. There's some weird social media posts that have come because of that. Yeah,
it's fun. I like fun that comes around beer marketing. I think we've been missing it for a long time, and I like it.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is where he's washing his car with his buddy, and they're like in short shorts and no shirt, and somebody shared it to one of the beer groups, and somebody commented on it. Who is their audience for this? Maybe I'm too old for this. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, you're probably a little too old for who this is intended for.
Yeah.
Because this is for everyone.
Yeah.
Like.
No. If we want to think about, Bud Light and some of their marketing over the years, they've been very smart about directing certain marketing towards certain people, and then other marketing towards somebody else, and then other marketing towards somebody else. And you identify that all these people are drinking your beer, but how you connect with them is very different than how you connect with them. And how you connect with them is very different than how you connect with them. They've been very good about kind of putting those things in the right places. For the most part, sometimes it falls a little flat. when one segment of the population hears about the marketing towards another segment of the population, sometimes they lose their minds.
Yeah, I mean,
break out the machine guns.
Dilly Dilly was pretty popular for a really long time when they did their whole medieval thing.
Yeah,
and they milked that one for, I want to say, a good 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it was a while. But it's just you can market towards different people and have the same product. It's fine. Yeah.
Well, sometimes there's not a lot of cross-pollination between those groups, so they don't know what you're saying anyway.
Ideally. Don't let them communicate with each other. Yeah. We stay away from each other.
Okay. So
you don't need Kid Rock getting involved again.
He's an interesting character. So there are a lot of big events coming up that you are responsible for,
I'm not
very, very involved in, the reason for, to some capacity?
I don't know how I would word it. I definitely have been poking a lot of people to make a lot of events for Cincy Beer Week. I don't know that I'm responsible, and I'm certainly not, the one that's making the events. It is definitely the venues themselves have taken the torch and done their thing with it, which is what it's supposed to be. So there's a ton of stuff.
We'll start off with Cincy Beer Week as a whole.
Okay.
So, how long has that been in the works?
Loosely in the works for maybe 5 years. Loosely. But it is a terrifying thought to try to kind of take over that thing, because it was such a big thing, and it was a very expensive thing to run before. So trying to figure out how to do it. I think I started to get serious about that over the last 2 or 3 years, trying to understand how I could make it make sense and make it feel kind of like it did before, but be very different than it was before. It's, like I said, very much in the hands of the venues themselves now versus a board who is making some kind of set of rules and things like that.
Yeah. So I know there are 93 different places that are involved.
There's more than that. I don't technically know how many places are involved, because it's open to anybody. If you're serving beer, even if you're not, and you say, hey, this is a Cincy Beer event, Cincy Beer Week, we're throwing an event, and it's down with beer, let's drink cocktails. That's a hilarious event, and I'm all about it.
No, wait. I got one better for you. Down with beer, Carrie Nation had the right thing. All your events are hosted at Nation.
I mean, I'm fine with whatever people do, as long as it somehow ties back to Cincinnati beer, somehow.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how many different places will do something. It'll be more than just breweries and tap rooms. There will be some bars involved. I know of a handful that are definitely doing something. There's been a couple that said they were going to do something, and I still have not gotten confirmation about that. So
Well, as Julia says, sometimes these places come up with events a week beforehand, and that's fine when they say it's a thing.
I am prepared to be in the middle of beer week adding events to the calendar.
Yeah. I lost my thought. I had a good one. This is rough. Yeah. So, what percentage would you guesstimate that you have contacted or worked with, like, directly in regards to Cincy Beer Week versus they contacted you or, like, grassroots campaign of people harassing them?
I would say 80% I've reached out to somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were really easy, and it was just email, and they got back, we want to do something. We'll get back to you and let you know what we're thinking. Some of them, it was going and stopping a handful of times and pestering managers and owners and like, hey, we want you guys to do something for this. Please do something for this, until they finally, we'll do something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch that said, we'll do something. I haven't heard anything back from, so we'll see. But yeah, it was a lot of stops with and meetings with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
Yeah. So there's the Women in Beer panel, which is the 7th. Is it the 11th that is the end of Oktoberfest Quests?
Yes. No. 10, 9. 7th is
6,
Monday.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
7th is Monday. I think Thursday is
October 10th.
Is the Oktoberfest Quest finale. And then
I had to pull it up on Facebook.
Saturday is Big Sis.
That's it. Saturday was Big Sis. I knew there was something.
So the only events that I am actually throwing that I would say are my events is Oktoberfest Quest finale and Big Sis.
Mm-hmm.
And even Big Sis I've left that very much in the hands of darkness and say, hey, can you guys get this event put together? I've definitely been there the whole way, but those are the only 2 events that I would call gnome events. Everything else, it's the venue.
I've been terrible about following the quest this year.
I've been terrible about doing the quest this year. I still have a lot of beer to drink. Yeah, this weekend I anticipate I will be drinking a lot of Oktoberfest beer.
Why you should be doing one right now, then.
I should be, but I'm not.
It'll happen when it happens.
I was eating lunch this afternoon. I'm like, man, I should sit and drink some beer after this, but I'm not. It's the afternoon. I still got work to do. I really shouldn't. Yeah, we got a lot to drink. We'll get there.
Yeah, I know it'll get
the
done.
The scarier part is I still have one I have to pick up. It's not even in my fridge yet.
How close is it to?
It's Middletown. Shout out to New Wales.
Oh, good luck.
That's a tomorrow problem, I think.
Sounds like a good day for it.
Yeah.
I cannot help with that one. We're never out that way anymore.
Nobody is, except the people that live there. Yeah, it's been a lot this year. I had another pretty major project that I was going to launch this year that I was pretty far along with, and then I got to about like July or August. It's probably August, and I had to put it on the back burner for next year because, my God, there's just no way. I'm already getting behind on everything, and I was starting to see how much Beer Week was gonna take out of my time, and I'm like, there's just no way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's something with when the kids become older, they're more independent, but then comes more out of the home activities.
Oh yeah,
that have to happen.
Yeah.
And then I've got a coworker who's like every other weekend is like, like half the cheerleading squad was at my house for a summer party this weekend.
Yep. No, I mean, it's not a joke that, like, if somebody wants to book something like with us, like, hey, can we go, let's go out for dinner, and you can bring all the kids, and it's like, okay, you got to let me know, like, at least a month and a half in advance if you want to get it on the calendar, because that's how crazy the schedule gets. Like, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, there was a theme, and there was a rule in our house for a while where it's like, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, that is 100%. We live and die by the calendar. I'll show you my calendar right now. This is October.
That seems about right.
But you've got
a few empty days there.
We have one empty day in October, and I'm not going to say what it was because I'm trying to leave it open.
It was the second. It was not.
One of my parents will call, we need to do something that weekend. I heard you guys were open.
Yeah, we found that with parents too, where it's like, oh, hey, can you guys come over tomorrow and do XYZ? And it's like,
nope.
We've had plans on the calendar for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry. We can't do that. Okay, so Oktoberfest Quest, Big Sis, is your next one. Unfortunately, we're both going to have to miss that, unless if I just come with the kids on my own, which might be a terrible idea. We shall see. Depends on whether or not the kids nap.
Yeah. The good thing about Big Sis is the beer itself will last after the event, and so you'll still get a chance to try it. But
it's a nice event. Is the charity the same this year? Or
yes,
is it, okay.
It's the Bellevue Education Foundation, something like that. Whatever the organization is down there in Bellevue that supports the schools.
Yeah, which is a great cause. The children are our future.
Oh man.
No cat. Bussin'.
There was a whole other list of slang that I've heard recently. There's the skibbity toilet. There's Ohio Riz. All kinds of things I've learned about.
I mean, it's good that Ohio's on the map. It makes sense that it's on the map for being like the most plain, boring thing ever. Yeah. But our beer's really good.
I use it different. I'm trying to reclaim, Ohio Riz as a good thing. I'm just, I got Ohio Riz. Kids look at me weird. I'm like, yeah, you guys don't understand.
There's 4 places that I go on vacation. We've got good food. Yeah. What are the 4 places that we go on vacation? Do you know this as Ohioans?
So you got Outer Banks, Gatlinburg. That's the best I can do. Those are the 2 places I can think of that
Siesta Key and Myrtle Beach.
Yep.
Are the other big 2.
Yeah.
Sometimes Disney World, because everybody goes there, so it doesn't necessarily count.
Everybody does not go there. I've never been to Disney. That's rich people stuff.
I am an only child. So.
we never went to Disney. We went to Kings Island a couple times when I was a kid, and then once I got older and was able to afford like a season pass myself, then we really got our Kings Island in. But yeah, we didn't go to Kings Island a lot even.
Yeah, we
went
passes
to the backyard. Like, go play in the backyard. You're on vacation.
Yeah. Oh, I did definitely play out in the woods a lot more.
We didn't go to Gatlinburg until I was like probably a teenager. We went to the Outer Banks once as a kid, but that was when we lived in North Carolina, so it was a much easier trip. We really didn't take a lot of vacations.
Depends on the family.
Yeah.
I know some families that are like that, where it's like, we just stay in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Just go at least one more place. Just one more place. See something else that's not what you're used to seeing. And then, is BB&B still a thing?
I don't know officially if it's happening on their end, but I am not part of it this year. Again, one of those projects that got scrapped pretty early on in the year as I started looking at the calendar. And there's just no way.
It is a lot. Because
it was originally part of my plan for Beer Week was to have the festival kind of anchor one end of it. But on one hand, festivals are a pain in the butt to plan, super expensive to plan, and I haven't figured it out yet of what makes a festival something that I want to exist.
Yeah. We enjoyed BB&B.
It was great.
Yeah, because it was, I think we fold once, and I knocked off more pins on the board next to us than our board.
It was part of the game.
But it was like the breweries usually had a good representative there versus just, here is someone who is pouring beer.
Yep.
And it was great because it was always craft breweries that you knew that you were going to like. Yeah. Not that there are really any bad craft breweries in Cincinnati anymore anyway. Usually, sometimes even like the owners would be there too.
Right.
And it'd be fun beers that you wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else.
And that was the idea behind it. Even that started to get difficult though. Over the few years we were doing it, it got progressively harder and harder because people just started to become very jaded to festivals for lots of different reasons. So.
Well, yeah, they only want to. They're used to like, oh, I just pull a keg.
Yeah.
Thank you. They pull a keg of something that's in the cooler and just send it out and. Okay, here's our IPA and here's lager, or it's wintertime. Okay, here's our IPA and here's a stout. Yeah,
there were a few breweries that you would contact, and it's like, yeah, we'd love to be involved. We'll send this and this. And I was like, no, that's not the way it works. What do you mean? It's not the way it works. It's not the way this festival works. So I'm not ruling out in the future that at some time I might not do another festival in partnership with somebody, but it is not in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, well, because the first year you were with Cincy by the Pint.
Yeah, but I'm talking more about Folding Warehouse.
Yeah.
Warehouse as a partner, that they made it a lot easier to do the festival because they have a liquor license.
Mm-hmm.
They can then serve the beer afterwards. If there's half a keg left over or something,
Yeah.
you just put it on tap, and they can sell it that way and get their money back from the keg. Versus with some festivals, if you spend $350 on a six-stole, which we did that, then you gotta find a way to make that money back immediately. And it's number one, it's got to be on ticket sales, and you have to then try to sell enough tickets that you're going to drink all of that beer, and that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And so if you have even a quarter of a $350 keg left, that's a lot of wasted money for a place that can't sell it afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a big help. I haven't thought about that aspect as much because we're used to being able to sell whatever's left as long as we have
same thing.
Adapter for it.
Same idea. It's a liquor license holder. You can sit on the kegs and just sell them later for something else.
Yeah.
It's not always easy for people. Think about when they do Cincy Beer Fest, down here at the convention center. The convention center's not keeping that beer afterwards. They're not. They're not paying for it. It's it's through the fest. So whatever's left over is gone.
Yeah, it's been quite a few years since we've been to that one. Actually, I think we've only been once, and we were volunteers technically.
Yeah.
And it was chaos.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Always is.
Fun chaos, but chaos. So you are now full-time the Gnome, which we've touched on the whole time.
It's still like I said, there are definitely some client jobs that I take that are not necessarily Gnome things. They still know me as the Gnome, but I still every once in a while I'll get a real estate job here and there, and I'll still shoot them. I do a little bit of drone work, especially in the real estate world. I do. Trying to think of any other jobs that I've taken that aren't really Gnome things. And there's not a lot, but yeah, it gets better and better every year, more and more kind of Gnome focused. But I'm not a full-time blogger or a full-time podcaster or something. I know some people kind of get that impression, and that is not it. The podcast does not make enough money to sustain a full-time income.
Again, we're raking in millions of dollars over here.
There are some people that really think that. I mean, when you listen to my episode, you don't hear commercials. big sign that there's not a ton of money coming from it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's pause on that for a second, though. So people everywhere call you Gnome.
Sure.
I have camp name, and I still have full-grown adults with children that will be they'll be Caroline, what? And, oh wait, yeah, you do have an actual name. How weird is that? Are your kids? Do your kids understand it? Do your kids
a little
get
bit?
It?
A little bit. I don't know that my youngest does, but my oldest, she's definitely been a lot of places, and somebody will yell Gnome, and she knows that's me. They definitely know, if they see the logo somewhere, they know that that's me. But no, they don't really understand it very much. It's more awkward with people that are newer people that I'm just now getting to know, because for a long time I was the Gnome. People didn't know my actual name. I was very anonymous, and that was part of the whole fun at the beginning. And now, especially with the business side of it, a lot of the emails I'm sending out have my real name on them when I'm sending it to people for the first time, especially if I'm talking to them for a business thing. So there's a lot of the first meeting when you sit down and they're so before we start, what do I call you? It's well, it's whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, so, I had to deal with that too. If it's okay, so this is a meeting with just adults.
I will answer to either one pretty equally. The only time, if I'm out doing something as the Gnome, so I'm in a bar or a brewery or something, I've got a beer in me, and somebody yells my real name,
which is George, by the way.
They probably have to yell it a couple times before I'll turn around, because it won't register that that's me in that situation. On the flip side, if I'm out at my kids at a soccer game or something and somebody yells Gnome, I'm turning around right away. I know it's me. And I know what part of my life they know me from.
I did that to a friend from camp. It was across campus, and I yelled, Elmo! And she turned around, and she's like, you know my name. And I'm like, yeah, but you're the only one who's going to, like, actually turn around and acknowledge that it's you.
Yeah.
Versus everybody else just kind of looking confused as to why are you yelling Elmo across campus.
Yeah, it's similar.
Mm-hmm. So you went full-time. Well, we've talked about all this. It's about your business and what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's I most of what I do is most of the income that I make, if people are interested in this, comes from client work. If I'll do video projects with people, I do a lot of social media work with people, so pictures and videos, and I manage a few social media accounts. That's the majority of my actual income. I split it all up into these separate little like boxes. So you have the podcast is its own little box. The website is its own little box. Cincy Beer Week will become its own little box. And each one of those boxes has to be profitable in themselves for me. Mm-hmm. But the majority of the money coming in comes from client work. YouTube is a box. YouTube is the worst box because it is not profitable.
We're still trying to reach that 50 subscribers. So I could well, not this phone, but this phone. I could say hey, we're going to do this live.
Right.
And do that from this phone. I can't yet though.
Sure.
Until we.
It's more of a hassle than it's worth to do things live places.
The nice thing for Joe is that he then just takes everything and then spits it out on all the podcast feeds.
Right.
So he doesn't have to edit anything.
Right.
But then his frustration is sometimes I say things that he does not want me to say.
Sure.
And then it's, we have to edit that.
Yeah.
I think no. Since we started going live, there's only been one time that he's done that.
Okay.
Every other time,
yeah.
It's just let it ride.
In the history of my podcast, I think there's probably only maybe 2 times that I've had to go back and edit something because of something somebody said. Maybe 2. It might be 3. And 1, I still maintain that I did not need to do it, and I probably shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I know. You came to us with a question at some point as far as a few people of what do I do in this situation? And we're like, it's so complicated. Yes, but no, but yes, but no.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that gets kind of tricky sometimes.
It doesn't have to.
No.
It doesn't have to be tricky at all.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is you're telling your truth. Now, if your version of the truth is completely wrong, where you're like, hey, the sky is yellow.
But that can still be on the podcast. You can say, hey, the sky is yellow. And I'm like, man, I think the sky is blue. And we can talk about why we both think that and why we think differently, and then we can move on, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with everything somebody says. Sometimes people say things that might hurt your feelings. That's okay. It's okay to have your feelings hurt.
So we're now in a dual system.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mostly okay. How many episodes do you think you've lost?
Oh, that's I could tell you the exact number if I pulled out my notes. I think it's 3. I think there's been 3 lost episodes. 3 lost episodes, or maybe even 2 lost episodes. And then there was 1 episode that I have that I never posted. And that was more of an emotional thing. That was the last episode that Mike was on. Mm-hmm. We just never posted it.
Some things are best kept.
He died in between recording it and posting it, so we just didn't post it.
Some things are best kept for you and family.
Yeah. Or for nobody. Doesn't have
nobody.
To. The people that were there were part of the conversation, and that's kind of probably all it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. That is all of my PR person questions. I have the best PR guy ever. It's Joe. Is there anything else that you would like to plug or say?
I don't think so. I mean, just get out there and drink some local beer, especially for Beer Week. Get out there and drink something local. And something from North Carolina. We'll pretend they're local right now.
Hey, we may be 50 different states, but we are one nation that can...
One nation under beer.
Yep.
I don't know what Asheville beer we can get here other than Highwire, New Belgium, and Sierra Nevada. I don't know if there's anything else on our shelves that comes from...
I don't know.
Asheville.
I mean, I guess our hope is that there's a distributor place somewhere that was mostly safe and can just be get it out of North Carolina.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know some GoFundMes have started for different stuff.
Yeah, and I know that there's kind of one big charity that the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild or whatever they have down there is trying to put together, and I don't know all the details of that yet, but I'll definitely be sharing all that stuff out on my social when I get all the information together.
Yeah, I'd like to as well. I just have to remember to do it.
Yeah.
I've got
I
4
hear
different
ya.
things to post.
I hear you.
You've got 30 though,
I have
so
way more than 30 actually.
different world.
Coming into Beer Week, I literally have hundreds of things that I now need to make, some little stories for in Canva and get them scheduled and ready to post.
So you just need to hang out with Joe for an hour because you guys speak the same language. I do the math. He does the words.
Yeah.
It's usually how that works out.
It's a good arrangement.
Yeah. Okay, so this has been the Craft Parenting Podcast. Thank you for joining us. If you are on YouTube, slam that like button, smash subscribe, ring that notification bell. This is usually when I hit Joe in the face.
Sounds so violent.
I know, it really
Slamming
does.
and smashing and man.
There was some kid that used to say bye to people by saying like and subscribe because that's how they watch too much YouTube.
Yeah.
Our kids do not watch that much YouTube.
My kids watch a ton of YouTube.
They don't know how to skip commercials yet, so they can't watch YouTube on their own until
YouTube Kids
master that skill. Do they put that on the PlayStation?
I don't know, but it's a whole app and there's no commercials.
I know. We watch it on the PlayStation.
Okay, I don't know. See if there's a YouTube Kids app.
Yeah. So 5-star review all around. Please like us on YouTube or subscribe on YouTube so we can get to that 50 number.
I think you can like on there too.
I think so too.
I don't know what it does, but you can like it. It's fine.
Joe has big plans. I'm still learning what those big plans are. Let's see here. I am at Caroline Creates Crafts on Instagram and Caroline's Creative Crafts on Facebook. The little crochet beer mugs that I made are really taking off. They're super cute.
Yeah.
And we have the website, which is craftparentingpodcast.com. It's been forever since I've looked at the end of our show notes. And with that, I'm Caroline, and this is the Gnarly Gnome.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out.
Well, thank you.
Okay, the moment of truth. Did the phone record?
Yay.